Welcome back to my February reads. This month, February, it's March already, obviously, but February was a short month, so I didn't get a ton of books read, but anyway, I'll go through it. But before I do, I just want to address a point. Somebody was asking me in the comments, did I prefer ebooks over a book in my hand? And or audiobooks. My first preference is a book in hand. I love holding a book, turning the pages, smelling the book. It's just more experiential for me, and I prefer a book. But having said that, sometimes books are super expensive. The book you want to read is like, you want it right now, and you want to read it right now. You may be traveling when we were allowed to do travel. Do you guys remember that, traveling? It's easier to take an ebook with you because you can bring way more than one book with you. And also, audiobooks, I like sometimes. They're my least favorite because I tend to fall asleep when I'm listening to them. So I will listen to an audiobook on the treadmill before I go to sleep if I can't go to sleep. But I prefer looking and actually reading, whether it be an ebook or a book. And you know, sometimes a book can be so good that I find myself trying to turn the page on my iPad, and I'm like, why won't it turn? And then I realize, oh, it's an ebook, you know. So it's not that much difference, but the price is different. It's much less expensive to get an ebook. The ebooks that I get, I shop with Kobo. The reason I do that, it's because you can access your book on your phone, on your computer, desktop, on your iPad, on any of your devices. That comes in super handy if you happen to be waiting in a doctor's office for your appointment, in an ER, somewhere where you're not going to bring a big, huge book with you. It just comes in. Are you interested? It just is more convenient. For my audiobooks, I get them from chirp.com, like a bird, chirp.com. Their books, when they do specials, are unbelievable. I went to get this book, So You Want to Talk About Race. And the book itself costs around 20 something. To get the audiobook on another audio company, I guess, it was $18.99, and Chirp had it for $1.99. So on my iPhone, I have, you know how you can compartmentalize different things like shopping, games, you can put them all in something. I have one that's called Reading, and in that I have Goodreads.com. I love to go to Goodreads to assess if, say, Chirp has a really good book they're recommending. I go to Goodreads and see if the book has really high ratings. So if it's 4 and up, well, 5 is the best, but if it's 4 and up, then I will get the book. And so that's a great thing. They have lots of challenges on Goodreads, and there's other people that read. It's a really good community. So check out Goodreads.com, and then there's Kobo, and then there's Chirp, and then there's another one called Bookbub. I don't know why I started getting Bookbub, but I think it might come from the Kobo app, because it again offers really inexpensive books that are for your e-reader. So I hope that helps you guys when books can be very expensive, and it can be an expensive hobby, but there are ways around it. So those are just a little to answer the question, what kind of books I prefer. But at the end of the day, I prefer a book. My favorite size book is a trade paperback, and that's like these guys. You know, not the old small paperbacks. The writing is too small in them. These ones are my absolute favorite. So trade paperbacks, that's what I like. So let's get on to our first book. So the first book I want to talk about, there's two. The first two, I am not finished them, and I'll explain why. This one, it is called The Crimson Petal and the White by Michael Faber. And this puppy is 800 and exactly 900 pages long. So I did start it, but then I thought, you know what, I'm going to put this aside and wait till I actually have no books that need to be read for my book club, or just when I have more time or a month that's longer than February is, and I can just invest in reading this. So I did start this in February, but then I put it aside. It looks like a really good story. It's in the 19th century London, and this one lady yearns to escape for a better life from the brothel. She lives in a brothel by Mrs. Castaway, and she begins her ascent through society, meeting a host of lovable, maddening, unforgettable characters on the way. So again, you can look this up on Goodreads, The Crimson Petal and the White, and they will give you reviews without spoilers. And usually if there is a spoiler, they will let you know. So that one I did start in February, but I will finish it at a later date. This next book is called Tiny Beautiful Things, Advice on Love and Life from Dear Sugar, Cheryl Strayhead. And you'll probably recognize her name. She's the woman that wrote the book Wild, and she went on that trek through California, on that hiking trail by herself. And I'm not sure if this was before she went on the hike or after that. She had a job as an advice columnist, and her name was Dear Sugar. So this book is a compilation of all of the different letters that she received in her column and her responses to them. So it's really good. So I'm not finished this one on purpose because my daughter and I are buddy reading this. So we will read 5 letters and her responses, and then we touch base every few days and discuss what we thought of what she said and the people. It's really a fun way to read a book, like to buddy read. And this is the perfect kind of book to do that with, because you can have discussions and the topic's always going to change depending on what the reader is asking. Some of the letters have really moved me. It's funny what touches you, in, like if you've had sort of a similar personal experience, how it touches you. This is a really good book. I recommend this book, Tiny Beautiful Things by Cheryl Strayhead. So the next book that I finished in February was called Radium Girls. It was an ebook, and I will put the image up while I'm talking. Radium Girls is the story of, it's kind of I think it is a memoir, and there's also pictures in it too, about young girls who used to paint the dials on the fluorescent clocks and watches. If you're my age, you probably remember those clocks that used to glow, the alarm, West clock, I think they were, and the alarm clocks and the numerals used to glow green at nighttime. So these are the girls that used to paint the dials on those clocks. They also used to paint dials on instruments during the war. So this is in the 1930s, 40s era. And the method of painting the clocks was dipping the brush in the radium mixture, so putting it in their mouth to make a really accurate point, and then painting on the dials. So it was called lip dip paint. So, and then they came to find out that radium caused cancer, and how it sort of talks to laws of industrialism and how you're protected or not protected from things and hazards that happen at work, and what these girls did to now laws are in place for that reason. It's so good. I just was like, wow, wow, wow. And when I would put the book down, I would still be thinking about these women, especially the pictures that are, there's pictures of these women that received harm from the radium. There's also a movie called Radium Girls, and it's actually on YouTube, but you can pay to watch it. So after I read the book, I watched the movie, and it doesn't go in as much detail as the book. And I also watched the Marie Curie story, because she's the one who discovered radium with her husband. So her and Pierre Curie, and it's just so interesting. And it's one of those things that you're like, not that you didn't know it, but you didn't think about it. And you probably don't know the story of these girls unless you've looked it up or studied it or read the book. So for that, I really, really, really enjoyed that book, Radium Girls. So the next book is called When I Fell from the Sky. And it is a memoir by Julianne Kopecky. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her last name right. Kopecky. And this is the true story of this young teenage girl, Julianne. This was like in 1971. And she got on a plane from Peru, and she was her and her mom were going to meet her dad for Christmas. Her parents were scientists that studied jungle animals, jungle birds, and they had created kind of a community in the Amazon jungle, and that's where they lived. And so she was coming with her mom to join her dad on Christmas Eve, and the plane crashed. And she was the only survivor. There were, how many people on this plane? I think it was 92 passengers, which included her mother. And Julianne's unexplainable survivor has been called a modern day miracle. And she survived with very minor injuries, considering she fell from the sky, you know? It's so good. Richard read it, and then I read it. And so we were able to discuss it back and forth. But, like, it's just really good. The downfall of this book, for me, he didn't think so, but I did. With the title, it says, When I Fell from the Sky, I was hoping, or not hoping, I assumed or presumed that the book would be mostly about her ordeal in the jungle, her, you know, the whole accident and what's surrounding the accident and all that. But it took till over half the book to get to that point. Most of it is the history of her mom and dad setting up this place in the Amazon, and the work that they did and their studies and all of that. And so for me, I was like, oh, okay, I get it, you know, but I wanted it to be more about her experience. Although they do cover it, but I just felt that they didn't cover it in enough detail for me. And another thing that I noticed right away, that it was a translation. And she's from Germany, and I think she speaks Spanish fluently. I also looked up, there's a movie. Oh, what's the movie called? It's on YouTube. I will put the name of the movie across the screen here, because I'm going to have to look in the book and find it. But it's actually on YouTube, and it's free. And when I was watching it, there were subtitles, so she doesn't speak English. So this was translated from Germany to, it was translated from German to English. And I don't know why, but I knew that. I could tell that it was a translation. So I'm sure if I spoke German and I read the German book, it would have been more profound. And funnily enough, on Goodreads, the reviews, the English one has much less stars than the German one. So I think I was right in my deduction that it was lacking a little richness in the story, I guess. But it's really interesting and really good. And then there is that movie, so you can watch the movie also if you want to follow. Always read the book first, in my opinion, and then follow it up with the movie. But yeah, here it is. The incredible story was documented in the film Wings of Hope, directed by Werner Herzog, who was a very famous director. And it's on YouTube. If you look up Wings of Hope and maybe his name and her name, it'll come up. And but it's just unbelievable. How could you fall from an airplane and survive? She was 17 when it happened. Unbelievable. But so for that, it's a really interesting and good read. I love books that are so interesting. And both this one and the Radium Girls, to me, were that. So, When I Fell from the Sky, from Julianne Kopecky. So for our very last book, it is called Utopia Avenue, written by David Mitchell. Now, David Mitchell is I'm pretty sure he's an award-winning author, New York Times best-selling author of Cloud Atlas and Bone Clocks. This book by David Mitchell is it takes place in the mid-60s, early 70s, the time of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and Utopia Avenue is a name of an up-and-coming band from the UK. And so in this book, he has intermingled famous people, they go to an after party after one of their gigs, and Keith Richards is at the party, or they're talking to Mama Cass. They go to a party at her house and Janis Joplin is there. So it's they are fictional. Well, they are a fictional band, but all the other stuff surrounding it is kind of true-ish, It's really good too. I still have a few questions in this book. There's just some things I'm didn't quite, This is our book club book, and we're going to be going over it in our next book club. So I have some questions that are just, there are some dream sequences in here, and there's 4 people in the band. There's this girl named Elf, and her real name is, I think it's Elizabeth, and her nickname is Elf. And then there's Griff, the drummer, Dean, and Jasper. And Jasper has some psychological problems. And so there's some dream-like or hallucinogenic sequences in the book. And so I have questions about that. Just a couple of questions that just didn't tie, the knots weren't tied for me at the end of the book. But it could be that I missed it. So when I go to book club, I will ask them about that. So, but the story was really good. There was really some sad moments and the really touching moments. The character development was excellent on all 4 characters in the band. You feel like you know them. I really do. I feel like if I saw them on the street, I would know that's Utopia Avenue. So he really described the characters really well. it was kind of wordy. There's some parts that I thought, okay, you could have told this 20-page segment in 2 pages. So the book itself is 574 pages long. In my opinion, it could have been told in 200 pages less. But I'm glad I read it. And I was just saying to Richard, it's interesting when you're in a book club and you don't pick all the books because everybody has a chance. There's groups. We have groups, and each group picks a book every time. And I don't know that I would have ever picked up this book, even reading the jacket, and thought, this is something I'm going to read. I don't. But yet I'm glad that I did. One really cool thing, you see the record on the front here? Can you see how that looks like a phonograph record? See the lines? But I want to show you something in the chapters. It's really cool how they did this. I thought this was really cool. So each chapter or section, it's more each section because the section is broken down into 4 chapters, this section. And this is side 1, the stuff of life. And each chapter talks about, that would be Dean Moss and the hook. So it talks about the song he's working on or something surrounding this song. The Last Supper is Griffin, Dean, and Elf Holloway, and just talks about that. Builders, music by Utopia Avenue, lyrics by someone else. Prove It is by Elf Holloway. That's a great song and why she wrote it. So each section has that. And I just thought that was really clever. And then side 1 and stuff of life side 2. And it keeps going through the book like that. So these are my reads for February. Radium Girls, When I Fell from the Sky, and Utopia Avenue. And the other 2 are my read-along, Tiny Beautiful Things, and Did Not Finish, D and F, Crimson, Petal, and the White. But I will finish it. It's just, I just wanted to show you that I actually was reading something else in February. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys look up those sites. Kobo. I don't use Kindle. I use Kobo, and I use Kobo because I can use it on all my different devices. And if you download the app, it's Rakuten Kobo, so you get points. So that's why I use Kobo. So there's Kobo, there's Chirp, there's Bookbub, and then there's Goodreads, which is such a good resource for readers. So we'll see you guys all next time for my March reads, and I hope you have a wonderful day.